welcome to Style and Direction, a new podcast from Street Expressa. This is your host, Ethan Wong.
And I'm your host, Spencer Roddy.
And so you guys are probably wondering what we're doing here. You guys have probably seen us on Instagram, or you guys have read the blog, or seen the blog from Articles of Style, Gentleman's Gazette, and you're probably wondering, what are these two knuckleheads doing here? Well...
Okay.
Well, we decided to make a podcast.
We sure did.
Spencer and I are big fan of just podcasts in general.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to, why don't we have a supplement to the blog?
Exactly.
As far as you guys know, the blog tends to focus on, acquisitions that we get, cool finds, different vintage events. And, that's always fun to talk about. But we wanted an avenue for us to explore kind of our editorial views, kind of our personal style, our personal views on the state of menswear, vintage and contemporary.
Yeah, because, typically discussions like we're going to be having on the podcast aren't the best for the blog format.
Yeah, we'll probably ramble on about some stuff, maybe go into some detail, go on some tangents, and, our blog posts are generally a lot longer than what you guys would think, especially with our focus on details and history, including as much pictures as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, like we said, it's not the best place to kind of just put our opinions and our views on things.
And because, fashion is a very visual medium and podcasting is not.
You're saying you can't see me right now?
I'm saying, well, I can see you.
That's true. You're sitting like 2 feet in front of me.
I'm sitting 2 feet away from you.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else can see you.
No.
But because this is a podcast and we can't show images, this isn't going to be the kind of thing where we're like, here's the difference between a peaked lapel and a notch lapel. That's not going to be what this podcast is.
No, it's not. It's basically going to, my view of it was not only we're going to talk about our views of fashion and our experiences, but get some guests,
Mm-hmm.
You've probably seen Benny, you've probably seen us talk about Marc Chevalier. We just did an article about the Monsivius tie.
Hope we're pronouncing that right.
Hopefully, let's hope that he doesn't come back at us and say, hey, cut that part out, But these guys have a wealth of knowledge of menswear. And not only that, they have a wealth of experience.
Mm-hmm.
We all approach fashion and style in different ways. Some of us come from, looking at GQ articles. Some of us come from looking at old Esquire publications from the 1930s. And some just liked it from the music and got into it from dancing. And I really want to emphasize that. Get their stories out there.
And I know this is something that is probably more Ethan's lane, more so than mine.
Lane Price.
Yep. But we have noticed that a lot of the menswear resources out there, I think you put it. You said that you want this podcast to be a menswear podcast without the stuffiness.
That's right. Yeah.
Because sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But if you look at, I'm not going to name anything specifically. If you look at a lot of menswear blogs, you see it's like, this is the best whiskey. These are the best cars that you should own.
Every car a man should own.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Spencer and I aren't typically like those guys.
No.
We don't feel the need to have to talk about, again, like the best bars you should visit, the best shaving tools.
Yeah.
There are blogs out there dedicated to those things. And half of it is, we don't want to step on anyone's toes, and we're also not experts in that area, but we really want to focus on menswear, classic menswear, vintage menswear, stuff like that. We don't really want to be a lifestyle, which I think is what a lot of the contemporary menswear bloggers, podcasters, vloggers now, I guess, they're kind of all going toward this life advice, lifestyle advice, and we really don't want that.
Yeah. And
on a personal note, I really think it starts to mess with kind of how people view men. They feel like, oh, men have to do it this way. Spencer and I are of the belief that they're just clothes. They're pieces of fabric that we wear that please us aesthetically.
Yeah.
There is no lifestyle or attitude that has to go with it. We know plenty of guys who wear suits and do not have the best personality, and we know guys who don't wear suits and who are the best guys that we've ever known.
Yeah.
And we want to focus on that. We just want to show suits from our point of view without having to kind of hammer in what masculinity should be.
And to hit another point really quick,
yeah.
This is not going to be a suits only podcast.
That's right.
We're not going to talk about the show Suits all the time.
No, we're not. We don't want to know what Harvey Specter and his other guy.
I've never seen an episode of Suits.
I've seen like 3 episodes.
Okay, but all joking aside, if you've if you've seen my Instagram or if you've seen Ethan's Instagram, like most
at first glance, it looks like we wear suits a lot.
Yeah,
and while that might be true for
we wear
a lot
suits
of people,
more than the average guy.
At least 4 out of the 7 days of the week, we're probably in a suit or at least a tie and a sport coat.
That's also because we both have jobs that require it.
Yeah, I mean technically they don't require it per se, but
my job requires it.
Okay, yeah, well, I could probably get away with like at least a nice button-up shirt and a jacket, But as long as we look nice. But anyway, the point is that we don't wear suits all the time. And if you look deeper and you look at my Instagram story, or if you're crazy enough to follow me on Snapchat, it's Ethan M. Wong, by the way, you'll see that we don't wear suits all the time. I'm wearing an oversized tee from Uniqlo and some old jeans from high school from Hot Topic.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's not exactly what you would expect from someone who touts the sartorial aesthetic all the time. And Spencer, I mean, I'm looking at him right now, guys, and he's wearing a now defunct Jack Threads loop collar shirt, which looks very. I mean, it looks pretty 60s. It looks pretty 60s, yeah.
And jeans.
Yeah, a pair of jeans and boots. So, that's not. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing super dressed up.
But the point being is, this is not going to be a podcast where we only talk to people who wear suits every day about suits. We're going to try to get some interviews or have discustions about all sorts of different styles.
Yeah, and when people think about the vintage style, and their mind automatically goes to suits. And again, even Spencer and I have vintage clothing from the era, and it's not all suits either. All the guys that we talked about too, they don't wear suits all the time. Even Benny, one of the biggest vintage collectors of all time, if you see him on a regular day, he's not wearing a suit. He might be wearing some form of trousers and a shirt, but it's not a suit. He knows how to dress down. He knows how to be casual, and that's something we also want to emphasize and kind of bring to light. Just kind of differing views of menswear, different approaches, and kind of just addressing a lot of the misconceptions. That's a big thing that we want to talk about. Something that we can't do in a blog post because there is so many. You don't really realize how many people come and email us or message us on Instagram and say, oh, I found this suit, or hey, does this look good? And we don't really want to be fashion police.
No,
we just want to help address the mistakes or the the different things that people get wrong when it comes to vintage fashion or fashion in general.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really want to explore in this, and also kind of ask the people that we talked about what their point of view is on that kind of stuff, because those guys also get the same questions. Whether they make hats and people ask them, oh, hey, how do I wear a 20s hat? And then you educate them. Well, the 20s hats look like this. Kind of just sharing these stories, I think, is an important part. Something that we can't really do on the blog in a proper way, because you can't really be concise about this kind of stuff. Yeah. Did you have something else to say, Spencer? What else did you write down on the magical notebook of topics?
I wrote down, introduce the hosts.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, so if you've made it this far into the podcast, episode
0 or 0.5,
whatever you want to
call
it.
Lion
King 1.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you found this randomly on whatever platform we've put this on, whether it's SoundCloud, iTunes podcast, Crossfingers, or you found it just randomly through Instagram and you linked to it, whatever, you might not know who we are. You might think that we're just some weird guys who are talking about fashion. Well, my name is Ethan Wong. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, anything like that, at Ethan M. Wong. I am a fashion blogger. I've written the blog Street Exprezza for 3 years. It's been in existence 3 years now, but I think in its current iteration and focus, it's been itself for about 1.5 to 2 years. I guess I just graduated. Congratulations to me. Congratulations to me. More like I just finished my master's in business marketing, not like the marketing itself, but business administration. And I've always had a love for fashion in general. As a kid, I read Tintin comics. I looked at Looney Tunes stuff. I loved Inspector Gadget, by the way. Watching him in a trench coat, Indiana Jones, all that kind of stuff has culminated into my love of classic menswear, whether it's, what Indiana Jones wears, leather jacket, button-up pants, or to what Gatsby wore, a white suit with a collar bar, all that kind of stuff. And it's my whole sartorial journey has moved me from looking at vintage with a kind of a costume sense into an actual source of inspiration that has a lot of the same rules and themes that we apply today.
Really quick, I just want to point out the fact that you did say button-up pants.
I said button-up.
You said button-up.
Well, hey, actually, back then, pants had a button fly.
Sure,
so
that's exactly.
Up
I think that's exactly what you meant. You sure got me. You did not make any mistakes.
I didn't make any mistakes at all. But basically, to be concise, I love fashion across almost all realms. Whether it's 90s inspired streetwear, 50s casual, 30s suiting, I like it all, and I really want to emphasize that aspect and kind of share that with the world. That fashion isn't always about dressing up; it's about dressing well. Pretty sure some other blogger has said that. I'm stealing it from somebody. That is not our trademark slogan, so it's free use, baby. All right.
That's how fair use works.
Yeah. So Spencer.
As I said before, well, hi.
Hi.
I'm Spencer.
Nice to meet you.
You can find me on Instagram at Spencer DSO.
Yep.
I have a Twitter as well. I don't really use it. I will probably use it in the future.
Live tweet.
Not live tweet. Really quick, my Instagram handle.
It's Spencer D. You said that.
I think it's Well,
it is
wait.
It is Spencer DSO. Don't worry.
Okay.
I know it.
Sorry, my Twitter handle. My God, this is a mess. My Twitter handle is Spencer Oddie, at Spencer Oddie, OTTE. I am studying to be a reporter. I recently, at the time of recording, published my first article for Ethan's blog.
That's right.
I sort of became interested in vintage before I became interested in fashion. I've always been interested in history in one way or another, be it when I was in preschool, I was super into pirates.
And he dressed like a pirate now, guys.
I dressed like a pirate every day. No, but then as I got older, I started getting more and more into, I guess, more recent history. So stuff like the 20th century, just because I in my opinion, it's a lot easier to connect with, and learn about the 20th century than it is the 16 or 1700s, just because we have technology like movies or
there were no
home
photographs,
photographs, stuff like that. And I started dressing vintage because there was a guy that went to my high school that is in the vintage scene. And I was influenced by that, and I have been wearing vintage stuff since probably my freshman or sophomore year in high school. I've been collecting since then. My style has grown.
And you are where now?
I'm technically, well, I'm in my third year at community college, so that's fun. Third year.
Wow.
We're probably going to cut this part out right here.
I guess so.
But so, yeah, we're going to have to edit a little bit more because I forgot what was I talking about?
Well, you were talking about yourself and your, your style journey. You started buying.
Yeah. My style has changed a lot. It has gotten a lot better, I think.
I think it applies to everybody.
And it continues to grow. I wear some form of vintage or just vintage inspired stuff every day. I work at Men's Warehouse, so I have to wear, well, I don't hate it, so I should say I get to wear either a suit or a sport coat or something like that. Usually that's vintage. And then when I on my days off, I usually
he's got a uniform, guys. It's basically like a some kind of sports shirt.
Yeah, 50s
loop collar sports shirt.
40s or 50s sports shirt with jeans and boots, and that's what I wear on my days off.
That sounds about right. I mean, if we want to talk about my, a little bit deeper on my style end, I didn't really start dressing up until senior year of high school. I don't know if you guys have seen the show Parks and Rec. It's a widely popular show, but there's a character on it named Ben White, played by Adam Scott, who wears what I assume is kind of like the uniform now. It's like a gingham shirt with like nice fitted chinos, whether they're khaki or navy blue, and like a skinny tie, and maybe like a tweed blazer. And I did that, senior year when I could. I had a uniform in high school, and then I wore them in as like a freshman and sophomore. And then during my sophomore year, I actually went to Dapper Day, which is, if you guys don't know, is like a day when people go to Disneyland dressed up. It's not a Disney specific thing. It's just kind of an event that people have put on. But I realized there were people there who wore true vintage, and I asked one of them, "Hey, where the heck did you get that? That's insane. It must be custom made." And to my surprise, the guy said, "No, this is real. This is an actual true vintage suit." And I was so surprised that he gave me some information. I went to a kind of like a backyard sale where these different vendors come together and sell to each other vintage clothing. And that's kind of how it started from there, and talking to these people, which I think we're going to emphasize in the podcast, that's the real way to get the knowledge. We try and include as much pictures as possible. You can go on Tumblr. We've got a few guys on Tumblr that really reblog and post some of the best catalogs and images. But the best way is, you got to hold the garment in your hands and ask questions. You say, "Oh, what makes this a 30s suit?" And obviously we're not going to get into that on the podcast itself because it's hard to show it. But, at least hearing the stories and kind of hearing some of the detailed advice from these guys is really important. But anyway, so yeah, I started collecting. I did not wear true vintage every day. I only use it to dress up. So like, when I went to a graduation or fancy, dinner, or if I had like my birthday, stuff like that, then I would wear, my true vintage. But when it was a day-to-day basis, I would wear, J. Crew, Banana Republic kind of style stuff. And it wasn't until later, and this is where Spencer and my journey kind of split off, but, I started finding classic guys like the Armory, B& Taylor, and, these classic menswear that are more bespoke and tailoring focused, and I really like that aesthetic. And, while I liked the vintage clothing, I could see some of the cues that they took and some of the updated fits. They don't really have padded shoulders. They're very soft. Their jackets might be a little bit shorter. Pants are also, a little bit slimmer. But there were some ideas that I felt like I could take from the vintage clothing and apply them like they did. And, while I'm definitely not able to buy bespoke and customize the exact stuff that I wanted, I found that, there were other ways to get through to it. Some 90s clothes have some aspects of both that you can also tailor down. I started going to Ruben, our tailor, way more often just because I wanted to, find these cheaper clothing because that's all I could afford, And they're not cheaper in the sense that they were poorly made. It's that these were old clothes that people don't really care for anymore, from the 80s, 90s, even the 70s or 60s that were super cheap because, and Spencer and I know that, buying 30s and 40s clothing, that's going to be retail. Like that's, it's, $200 to $300 for a suit, $500 if it's a really expensive suit, and stuff like that. And while that's not, as bad compared to a bespoke suit, we really don't have the means to do that all the time.
Yeah, and really quick point I'd like to get in that you just kind of mentioned, so hopefully what I'm saying is not redundant. But this is also going to be, this podcast is going to be coming from a perspective of two young college-aged guys.
Yeah, I'm 20. I'm turning 22.
Neither of us are particularly wealthy.
Nope.
So yeah, it's gonna be.
We're gonna. I mean,
that's another reason why we can't do the finest whiskeys and cigars that every man can own.
Here's a small tidbit from that. I don't even order soda or drink alcohol, and half of it is the taste, but a lot of it is the drinks are expensive, and I drink water a lot just because it's free. Spencer and I know where to cut corners, and not cut out quality.
Exactly.
We're still buying quality made pieces that will stand the test of time with normal wear, of course, and still be able to save a few dollars here and there. So anyway, basically to get back to what I was saying, I started thrifting a lot. I started finding these lesser vintage. The vintage community doesn't really buy 60s and 70s kinds of stuff. Definitely not 80s and 90s. And when you've got a good tailor they can look as great as you want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I started finding, and that's kind of where the blog reached its current iteration, where it started to focus on the transforming of tailored pieces, transforming thrifted pieces, crazy finds, stuff like that. And I think that's kind of where we want to go, because like Spencer just said, we're young, we don't make a lot of money, but we definitely like to dress well. We have a lot of clothes, and lots of people assume that we're wealthy, that we get crazy money, and that is going to be further from the truth.
Nope.
We saved money for lunch and breakfast today by eating inside.
Yep.
I had cereal and toast, and I'm not even going to eat lunch. Okay, so that's kind of what's going to be happening with this blog, and that's kind of where I am today. Today I'll go to a thrift store and try and find something cool. We can try and barter with some vintage people, and buying vintage, I think, is one of the best ways to save money and have a quality garment, and that's going to be its own episode at some point.
That's probably going to be one of the early episodes.
Yeah.
We're thinking probably episode 1. If it's not, then
it's gonna come out soon. But that's kind of the biggest thing we want to make, because lots of people think that on both ends, when people who are in vintage, they don't want to buy modern or anything past the 1950s because they think it loses its quality. And on the other side, a lot of modern people don't buy vintage because they assume that it won't hold up.
Yeah.
And Spencer and I are in the healthy middle. And, that's a special point of view that I hope that will appeal to a lot of you guys, because some of you guys who have talked to me are kind of in the same boat. You guys like vintage tailoring. You can't find it, or you're in a different country and you can't buy bespoke.
Yeah.
And so that's where, we want to come in there and kind of share with you and kind of push you in the right direction with style, because it's style and direction.
That's it.
Tied it right in there, guys.
You said the title of the podcast.
I did. So that's kind of it for the first
for
one.
episode,
for episode 1. We're clocked
episode
in
0 or
episode 0. Yeah, that's right. We're clocked in at 22 minutes right now. I guess moving forward, it'll probably be more like half an hour.
This one, I think it's going to need some light editing. So if
it might even be less.
Yeah. So if you look at your podcast app, whatever podcast app you use,
see that it's not 22 minutes. It's because we cut down just tiny bits of it.
And believe me, we cut out the best, funniest parts.
So it'll all be available on an extended DVD.
All the bloopers.
Yeah. So hopefully this will take off, and see you in the next one, guys.
We're going to come up with a good
closing
sometime. Maybe not episode 0. This is kind of like our origin story.
This is the origin story.
This is the episode where Uncle Ben gets shot.
Yeah. This is the episode where Dr. Erskine gets shot.
Yeah.
This is the episode where...
Just going to name more origin stories?
Okay. This is the episode where Obi-Wan Kenobi dies.
This is the episode where you learn how I got the scar on my chin. And how I got my fear of snakes.
This is the episode where you find out where I got my magical compass that goes where your heart's desire.
Spoiler alert, a dude handed it to him.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, well, let's just say that Pirates of the Caribbean 5 was kind of bad. All right. Total letdown. Total recall.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening. Hopefully we didn't ramble too much. Except maybe near the end there.
Yeah, a little bit.
We got a little bit off topic, but hey, thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.
See you the next time.
Bye.
Bye.